Hello and welcome back to my channel. On this video, I'm going to talk about all of the books that I hope to read in April of 2025. And I have got some really good ones on the list. But first, I'm going to start with the books that I haven't gotten to from previous months. And there are 4 of those that I'm keeping on my list. And I'm also going to end the video by picking a random alphabet letter and then choosing 5 books that start with that letter from my Kindle backlist so I can continue to read books that I already own. So let's go ahead and dive in. So here are the books on my list that I have kept from previous months. One of them that is actually not included in the 4 that I mentioned is one called Daily Creative by Todd Henry. This is a book that includes daily essays on creativity that I've been reading every day of the month thus far this year, and I'm going to continue to read that. So that's going to stay on my list all year long until I get through all of those essays. I also have Fractured Sky, which is the 5th book in the Tattered and Torn series by Catherine Cowles. I've read the first 4 books in this series and really enjoyed them. Catherine Cowles is known for small town romance suspense, and she's kind of saved the best for last. There's a character that's shown up in all of the novels thus far that's a little bit reclusive, and we're going to see her kind of come into a romance in this final book. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I also have on this list Ready Player 2. This is the 2nd book in the Ready Player 1 series by Ernest Cline. I did get to Ready Player 1 in this past month, but I didn't get to Ready Player 2, and I have not read it, and I would love to pick that up. And then also I have on my list still the first 2 installments of the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, which I wanted to reread before I read the latest book in that series, which is called Onyx Storm. So I have those still on my list that I'm going to be reading hopefully in this next month. All right, now let's dive into new books that I've added to my list for April of 2025. The first one is a relatively short book called How to Consciously Design Your Ideal Future by Benjamin Hardy. And I've read a bunch of other stuff by Benjamin Hardy. I will admit partly what drew me to this book was its shortness, because I have a lot of long books on my list, but I'm always interested. He comes from kind of like a psychologist perspective, and also he's the person who kind of introduced me to this idea of prospection, which is looking at multiple futures and kind of like digging into your own self-reflections on your future, which I just love doing that kind of reflection. So excited to pick that up. The NetGalley book that I'm going to pick up this month is one called Encore, A High Achiever's Guide to Thriving in Retirement by Elizabeth Zelinka Parsons. I was interested in this book because partly because of the coaching work that I do. I do work with some folks who are transitioning into retirement. And I think that because I work with clients that are in higher education, many of them are higher achievers. So I was just like intrigued by this concept of a high achiever's guide to retirement. So I decided to pick that one up. I also have on my list a book called A Town Called Solace by Mary Lawson. This is actually on my 25 books to read for 2025 list. I had wanted to read kind of more of this literary novel. I think it's about kind of a suburban drama from what I understand. And so this has been one that I've had my eye on for a while. Continuing my reading in neurodiversity, I have a book called The Neurodiversity Edge. And this is the essential guide to embracing autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and other neurological differences for any organization. This is by Maureen Dunn. And I have just so many books still on my list to read about neurodiversity, and this is one of them. So I decided to add that to my list this month. Also adding to my list, the 2nd book in the Live Alone series. This is called The Night Trade by Barry Eisler. And I finished the first book in this series last month, which is called Live Alone. And it is basically about a woman who is a police officer who focuses on sex trafficking. And she, as a child, was trafficked. And so she has kind of this background and experience. And she also has kind of a vigilante approach to things as well, which is really kind of interesting for a mystery series. So I'm going to pick up the 2nd one in that series. I couldn't help myself. I had to add Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. This is a book that I feel like everybody is talking about. It was one of the, I think, book club picks for one of the celebrity book clubs. And all I really know about this is it's kind of a sweeping romance. That's how it's been described. But I've seen so many people talk about how it's just an immediate 5-star read for them. So I wanted to pick it up and see what it was all about. I'm also going to dive into my reread of the Archie Sheridan and Gretchen Lowell series by Chelsea Kane. The first book in the series is called Heartsick. And this is basically a set of books, I think there's 6 in the series, about a police detective who becomes kind of obsessed with a female serial killer and they kind of have this cat and mouse game back and forth. I did read this series years ago and wanted to revisit it this year. This is also on my 25 for 2025 list, so I thought I'd pick that up this month. Also on my list, I have a book called Bad Mother by Mia Sheridan. This is actually another serial killer book. It is by an author that I have enjoyed reading her backlist. And I came across this one. It was on, I think, Kindle Unlimited, and also had an audio component to it. So I decided to pick it up. And I believe it's about a woman who is a police detective who's encountering the serial killer, but there's kind of like some connections between this killer and her family. And she's trying to kind of understand what those connections are. Also, I decided to pick up a memoir this month. It is called Poser, My Life in 23 Yoga Poses by Claire Dederer. And this is a book that I have not read. I don't think this is an author I've read before either, but I am starting to go back into deepening my yoga practice, which over the course of the pandemic, I did do many hundreds of hours of training on yoga teacher training and meditation teacher training. This is part of my background that I may or may not have talked about on these videos, but I'm deepening my practice right now. And so I'm starting to pick up some yoga and meditation books, which you'll probably see also in future months. Also on my 25 for 2025 list is a book called The Tennis Partner by Abraham Verghese. Abraham Verghese is most known for his wonderful historical fiction novels, including Cutting for Stone is a good example. And this is actually a memoir of him as a doctor and how he has a good friend who has challenges with addiction. And so he is kind of telling the story of their relationship. And this is one that's been on my radar for a long time, and I've been interested in wanting to pick that up. I'm also going to pick up a book called Juniper Bean Resorts to Murder. This is the first book in the Happily Ever Homicide series by Gracie Ruth Mitchell. I always just like to try out new series, especially ones that are kind of mystery series, because that's kind of my genre of choice. And so I'm excited to pick that one up as well. Also on the list of books that are just hugely popular and I couldn't resist is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. This is a book that, again, everybody's talking about, people are loving. It's a 5-star read for many people, and so I decided to pick this one up as well. I was able to get it from my local library on audio. Also, there is a new John Mars book, so I wanted to pick up You Killed Me First. This is his most recent release. I have read, I think, almost everything in John Mars' backlist, and maybe there's a couple that I'm missing, but I wanted to keep up with his most recent book, so this is one that I'm going to do. John Mars does kind of a mix of futuristic books, mystery suspense, thrillers. I'm guessing this is more of the mystery thriller just based on the title. I also decided to pick up a book called Making Things Happen, Mastering Project Management by Scott Birkin. I like to just dip my toe into different project management books because this is an area that I do in my work. And also I just have a genuine interest in it. And Scott Birkin is someone that I've been aware of for a while. I think I might have even read another book by him. But this came across my radar and I decided to add this to my list for this month. Also from my 25 for 2025 list is The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. This is a book that it clearly has a little bit of like magical realism in it, and it talks about this man who I think continually wakes up with a new life, and it has to like relive over and over again. And books like that are always kind of interesting in terms of how they're plotted, so I'm excited to dive into that. And I also decided to pick up a book called Homegrown by Jeffrey Toobin. Its subtitle is Timothy McVeigh and the Rise of Right-Wing Extremism. This is obviously talking about the Oklahoma City bombing, which I don't know much about. Obviously, it happened in my lifetime, and so I have awareness of this as kind of a cultural event, but wanted to pick this up and see if I could learn a little bit more. I'm also going to pick up the duology, These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and the first book is called These Violent Delights. The second book in the duology is called Our Violent Ends, and I'm pretty sure this is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet that is set historically in Shanghai. And I, again, have heard amazing things about this. It's been out for a little while and wanted to add that to my list as well. And then the last couple of books I have on my list, one is called The Resurrection of Joan Ashby. This is by Charisse Wolas. And I came across this book because somebody was talking about how years ago it was like a very popular book club book, and I had never heard of it. I had no idea who this was in terms of the author. I'd never heard of the novel. And I think the general plot of this is it's a woman who basically doesn't want to have children and is married, but then she becomes pregnant. And it, I think, is almost like a sliding doors, like what happens if she didn't have kids and what happens when she does have kids. and kind of embracing this new identity of motherhood. So I thought that sounded really interesting. And then last up, which I kind of briefly mentioned, I'm trying to get to Onyx Storm this month. This is the third book in the Imperium series by Rebecca Yarros. I have read the first two books in this series. The second book in particular has a lot of details and it goes into a lot more of the fantasy world building. And I know I need to revisit that before I get into book 3. So if I can get through the first two books, I'll pick this one up as well in the month of April. So a ton of really good books on my list. And now I'm gonna go ahead and go into my Kindle and sort by alphabetical so that I can pick my random letter, and I'll pick 5 more books that I'm gonna add to my list this month. So I have my handy container of letters. And the letter I am choosing is the letter F. So let's go ahead and navigate to the F books in my Kindle, and we'll see what I have not yet read that I can go ahead and add to my list this month. So first, I'm gonna go ahead and just do a quick scan and see what is here, and then see what I might want to pick up here. All right, I'm already seeing a couple books that look really interesting to me. So the first one I'm gonna pick up is actually another John Marrs book. It is called The Family Experiment. It is described as a dark and twisted sci-fi thriller of virtual parenthood in a dystopian future on reality TV. So that sounds amazing. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my list. The next book I'm going to pick up is one called Financial Joy, and it is about just generally unlocking financial freedom. I'm always kind of interested in finance books, so I'm going to go ahead and add that to my list as well. The next book I'm going to add to my list is one called The First Girl Child. And actually, let me take a look and see what is this about. I've looked at this cover for a while and have been kind of interested in this book, but I haven't looked at the description. Okay, so it says, there's a curse of a woman, a mother to her son, that she plagued the land. From this day forward, there will be no daughters in Salok. And the son has been gifted with inhuman strength, but he's also blessed with an all-too-human heart that beats with one purpose: to protect Alba, the first girl child born in nearly 2 decades, and the salvation for a country at risk. Now the fate of Salok lies with Alba and Bear, this is the son, whose bond grows deeper with every whisper of coming chaos. Charged with battling the enemies of their people, both within and without, Bear is fueled further by the love of a girl who has defied the scourge of Salok. Bring it on. All right, so I'm gonna add that to my list as well. That sounds like kind of a fun book. I'm also gonna pick a book that's kind of similar to the Encore book that I'm choosing for this month. It's called From Strength to Strength, Finding Success, Happiness, and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Life. And this is a book that was actually recommended to me by one of my coaching clients who also works with folks who are entering into retirement. And so I'm gonna add that to my list. That looks really good as well. And the last book I'm gonna pick up is one by an author that I have read before. Her name is Lisa Rankin, and this is a book called The Fear Cure, Cultivating Courage as Medicine for the Body, Mind, and Soul. Lisa Rankin is a medical doctor who I think left kind of her traditional medical practice to do more alternative medicine. And I've read at least one other book by her that was kind of a memoir that I really enjoyed. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that to my list as well. So I think that gives me my 5 F books that I'm going to be trying to read in the month of April. I have quite the list this month, and I'm really looking forward to diving in. I hope you'll follow along next month to see what I was able to read. And until the next video, happy reading.